implement their EEO plan. I'll say this from me. Who monitors the staff? Thank you, Badger. You eliminated 20,000 plus water meter backlog. Up to all.
Thank you for your testimony. And Chair, this concludes comment on the consent agenda.
All right. With that, I'll turn to the committee, beginning with Council President LaCava.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move the consent items and just a couple of quick items on item 3. I want to thank public utility staff for working with the Santa Fe Irrigation District and the District 1 residents. Thank you for going through the extra step for the annexation. It's one annexation or change of boundary that I can actually support. And I appreciate their service over the years, getting it right. And maybe you ought to think about actually just moving the entire neighborhood over to Solana Beach, given its unique location in that little corner of Via de la Valle and I-5. It looks like in item 2, the water meters, maybe a quick question. This would take us through August 2028, so we have a bit of a runway to think about what comes next. And if you could just briefly comment on that, Lisa.
Lisa Sly, Executive Assistant Director of Public Utilities. Yes, that would, and we would obviously start the RFP for a new firm well in advance of that, so we do not let that expire.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, you got a long runway there, a couple of years, so you're in good shape. All right, again, Chair, I'll be moving the consent items.
All right, thank you, Council President. Vice Chair Campbell?
Thank you. I'd like to second the motion.
All right, thank you. We've got a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously, 3-0, and brings us to our next item. Sarah, if you'd please introduce that for us.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 4 is the approval of updated UUP master plan. And if you're watching on City TV or the live stream online and you'd like to dial in to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252. And when prompted, input webinar ID 160-732-9638 #. Chair.
All right. Once our presenters are ready, please introduce yourselves for the record and let us know how much time you'd like for the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chelsea Clacius, Deputy Director in the Transportation Department. With me is Jenny Reynolds, Program Manager in UUP. We need 7 minutes for this presentation. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Before we dive into the details of the master plan, a quick introduction of the Utilities Undergrounding Program. The program was launched in 1970 to relocate overhead utility lines underground. Our program is managed by the city's Transportation Department, with construction of undergrounding projects primarily being performed by SDG&E. Our partnership with SDG&E operates under a 2022 Memorandum of Understanding, which establishes accountability, ways to maintain efficiency, and clarity between our teams. The city decides which projects are selected for design construction and ultimately funded. The city policies require that each utility participates in the undergrounding process. Now a little background. The effort to underground the utility lines in California began with the California Public Utilities Commission, or the CPUC, decision in 1967, which established a Rule 20A funding source that required investor-owned utilities like SDG&E to allocate annual funds for converting existing overhead lines underground. Rule 20A projects were chosen if they met specific public criteria, such as located in high traffic volume areas, scenic value, or significant public use. So that created one funding source. Then in 2002, the California Public Utility Commission approved a resolution that allowed for additional funding for the City of San Diego only, which was the surcharge program that we know today. That allowed for our second funding source. However, the landscaping changed again when the PUC ended authorization of the Rule 20A work credits in December of 2022, effectively ending Rule 20A program, leaving us with one funding source again. This leads me to the purpose of why we are here to perform an update to the master plan. Council Policy 600-8 requires that the city establish and maintain a master plan to execute the surcharge projects for the duration of the program. The master plan was last updated in 2018. In that version, there were both surcharge and Rule 28 projects. As I mentioned, since Rule 28 programs have effectively ended, we now have to merge unfunded Rule 28 projects into surcharge projects or develop new standalone surcharge projects from former Rule 28. It's important to note the scope of this update. Our undergrounding work covers power, telephone, cable, communication lines within the city limits. Although completed or ongoing projects are not included in the master plan refresh, they are active projects that the UUP team is managing, working towards construction. Also, transmission lines were not included. Undergrounding work focuses on the public right-of-way. And finally, unlike last time when we had a 5-year implementation plan was developed for this master plan on a fixed schedule, at this time instead we're using a year-by-year selection process based on the availability of surcharge funds. How was this done? First, the consultant engineering team started with an inventory analysis. They reviewed all the overhead facilities, which included power poles, guide poles, and distribution lines. The inventory data was obtained through SDG&E's GIS database. Then these facilities were verified using aerial and street visual imagery. Next, the consultant team created an online GIS platform that allowed the electrical team to communicate effectively with the GIS team by using blue arrows, as you've seen in this photo, giving directions so all reconfigurations could be completed. The reason behind each boundary revision was then recorded. Some goals when determining block size included setted boundaries in a way that facilitated project construction and maintaining comparable project costs. 28 projects were either absorbed directly into the surcharge projects or converted into standalone projects. There were 3 primary documents created during this process. The first was updating the master plan document. This is where the team refreshed the process and updated the governing policies. The second document was the project maps, and finally a new technical supplement was provided, which lists all projects in the table along with their respective attributes. To give you a quick overview summary of the numbers, we started with 132 Rule 28 projects that needed to be converted to surcharge. Of these, 126 were absorbed into existing surcharge projects. The remaining 6 were not combined with surcharge projects, but instead became 2 independent surcharge projects. Finally, to conclude, we had several goals in updating our master plan, each of which we're happy to say that we met. These included SDG&E's GIS data being integrated into our planning, optimizing project science for manageability and coordination, and ensuring unfunded Rule 28 were absorbed into the surcharge project. And with that, we will take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you so much. Let's hear public comment, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've got one speaker slip here in chambers, so we'll begin in-person testimony with Blair Beekman. You will have 2 minutes to provide your comment on item 4.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Undergrounding our future electrical things is really an important, good concept. Thank you that you're working on it. I'm wondering how this will, undergrounding things will connect to the, you have a project that was at City Council this week on consent on East Village. There's a parking structure. It's a whole park system that you're developing for the East Village area that it's got a lot, it'll have a lot of feature of smart tech also that I hope, I wanted to bring out again that I hope can be discussed as a smart tech future place. And I think it should be highlighted instead of, it's being kind of not talked about. How underground wiring will work in that area, I think will be an important part of that development. Yeah, how we work underground wiring with our tech future and working those things together. Good luck in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll begin the 5-minute timer for all those in the virtual queue to indicate if they wish to provide comment on item 4. As a reminder, each speaker will have 2 minutes. We will begin testimony with phone number ending in 8700. You can unmute by pressing *6.
Thank you, Sarah. Joy Sunyata, CD3. Wow, this was fairly new to me, yet I felt comfortable reading it. Thank you for the excellent presentation and the excellent staff report. I was blown away by 1967 as the date that that agreement and the CPUC had terminated it. I think it's called 28, but that just really was amazing to me and involved credits. So thank you, SDG&E, for all the work you do on these projects. A question for us: how would we rate SDG&E regarding being a cooperative partner? So again, I read this, I was really kind of mesmerized going underground with the trench being shared with other utilities. That really amazed me, and how complicated the project prioritization is, and the inclusion of equity components. And they're included in the master plan. And a question on that: has Director Desmond of Race and Equity been involved? I think that would be great. So here are the components I really love. Great to move the wires underground, tree canopies, fire prevention, aesthetics, foster community relations, improve sidewalks, curbs, and so forth. What a list. So thank you, everybody. It's just wonderful to move these wires underground. It just creates a more natural environment, and we need more of that. So thank you for listening, and love to all.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is phone number ending in 8813. You can unmute by pressing *6, and you will have 2 minutes.
Okay, excuse me, Consuelo here. Okay, so talk about the monopoly we all know as SDG&E. Let's see, when you control electricity in an entire region, the people don't really have a choice, do they? So forced customers. And now we're being told that the underground wiring is the solution. Okay, so let's talk about that. Underground power lines cost tens of millions of dollars for single projects. Let's see, I researched. One audit showed project ballooning over $44 million. And yep, we end up paying for all this. We are the ones who end up paying for all of this, the taxpayers, the people sitting in the room. And we're told it's about safety, and we're told it's about reliability, but the underground systems come with their own risks. When something fails, underground crews don't just climb a pole, they have to dig up streets, sidewalks, neighborhoods to find the problem. Repairs take longer, costs go up, and guess what happens next? Another rate increase, yay! This isn't just about infrastructure, it's about accountability. When a single utility company has a monopoly, there's very little incentive to control costs because the public is always the one footing the bill. We know this. So before we celebrate more underground projects, maybe we should ask a simple question. Is it really about safety, or is it about expanding expensive infrastructure projects that the public has no choice but to pay for? Because from where many of us are sitting, it feels like the same pattern we see over and over again. The people are told it's for their benefit, but the bill always lands on our lap.
Thank you for your comment. Your time has concluded, and this concludes public comment for item number 4.
All right, thank you. Let's begin our committee discussion with Council President Licata.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation and the work and bringing the master plan update here, and thank you for the briefing the other day on this. I want to start out by saying, having watched the utility undergrounding and even done a working group or two back in the day, the energy that I've seen in really revitalizing the whole utility undergrounding process in the past 5 years has been a welcome relief. It doesn't make anything move faster, but at least it is much more thoughtful, and it is much more transparent. And the additional work that you all went through to not just simply accept the boundaries of the past, but actually say, we've learned a lot over the years, let's see where there's opportunities to tweak and refine them so that when those utility undergrounding districts actually do get funded, that they're much more efficient and much more predictable in terms of the outcome, as we'll see in the next item, right? And also the other thing that was imposed on you, which is the abandonment by the CPUC of Rule 20A, and then trying to figure out how do we fit that in, because the average resident or the average business doesn't care what rule is being followed. They just care that there are these overhead lines on that. And it, you know, I know at least in my district, it is one of the biggest things that the public is demanding. When is my one of those lines in front of my house or behind my house are going to be undergrounded there? So it is something that I hear, not as much as potholes, but it's a close second. And it, you know, it didn't occur to me when we were doing the briefing, but I just realized we often get a lot of complaints that the city is not moving the utility undergrounding process fast enough. And I just realized SDG&E had 55 years to take care of all the 28 projects, and they left us with 132. So maybe we ain't doing so bad in managing our project, especially in light of the fact that the cost of the undergrounding is increasing much faster than the revenue to support that. So I appreciate that. So a couple of questions. Past master plans, I can remember, I think the original master plan where we laid out a schedule, a calendar for every district across the city, and immediately fell behind. But I think the 2018 master plan, we actually did a 5-year projection on districts, and this new one in front of us actually has no projection. Simply said, here's the districts that haven't been done yet, and that, if I understood correctly from the briefing, you will now identify how much revenue do we have, what project should be funded next. How will council learn about which projects are now going to become eligible for funding and undergrounding?
Sure, thanks for the question, council member. What we'll do is at our yearly annual update, we will have all of that information. So we owe SDG&E an update on what projects that we asked them to do by June and July of this same year. So when our project or when our program comes to committee in like May or June, we'll have a list of the projects that we plan on building for that next year. And that's when the committee would become familiar with what our projects are for that year. Okay.
And then it didn't occur to me yesterday, but we've changed the utility undergrounding MOU with SDG&E, and we made one change where we actually started prioritizing which districts would be moved first: fire safety, equity, et cetera. Have we spent enough years to actually figure out how that is working, how much it affects which ones we prioritize?
I would say we haven't had enough time to figure out the implications of what that prioritization has been, but we do have a tool now that is automation has been added to it, so it will be easier for us to look historically at the trends of that prioritization model. Okay, yeah, you make that kind of pivot, you got to give it a little bit of time to do that. So I'll close with my favorite yearly question. Project 1M1, which has been a bit of a dispute between the city and SDG&E about whether they can finish that project or not. Do we have any update? Sure, yeah. So for Project 1M1, that's in permitting. So, or did you mean 1M Job 2, which is the soil?
The soil, I'm sorry, the Job 2.
Yes, so 1M Job 2. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah, we actually have an account of what's going on. So it's in pre-design right now, and it's going. It's been there since December of 2025, and then it will be included. Our geotech recommendations will be included in the design work in July of 2026, when it will be ready for permitting by December of 2027. So it's making its headway slowly but surely.
Okay. That's like front page news of the La Jolla Light. So if you could, yeah. No, so I'm going to be careful about how I mention that. But so the problems with, or the conflict with SDG&E about soils conditions has been resolved, and the project will now get back in the queue and move forward.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. I think obviously taking a year to do the geotechnical study was not welcomed news, but it was
Right.
definitely necessary from an engineering standpoint. We were very relieved to know that the engineering study did show that it was going to become feasible with some redesign. So
Yeah.
that will get started.
That is, and I'll have to think of something else to bug you with on a yearly basis. But thank you for your go ahead. And like I said, it's just the new energy, the new approach is very much appreciated going forward. So thank you for that. And that concludes my comments. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Council President. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you. I believe that was a motion.
No, there's no motion. Was there a motion?
There's
I'm sorry. I moved the adoption of the master plan and staff recommendation. A little
Great.
sloppy here in committees these
all
days.
good. All good. You're in the cheap seats right now. All right. Vice Chair.
I think we do pretty well considering all the things that we're going. This is a very complicated process, and for you to be able to coordinate everything you have to coordinate before we get even underground is pretty amazing, because we now don't do it one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, messing the streets up 100 times. Everything is coordinated, so hopefully we can do our cross curb to curb paving at the end once. And it makes a nice smooth street and everything works well. I really appreciate how much this takes away fire danger. That is so important, and I'm so glad that you've included the high fire areas in the priority list. I think that's a big boon, and let's pray that we don't have any horrible drought situations coming up, but as the planet warms, I wouldn't be surprised. So this is really a good preventive thing that you're doing for all the citizens, and we really appreciate it. So I will second the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I appreciate the questions my colleagues asked. Thank you for the presentation here. This is important in a number of ways. The work is important, the planning is important, et cetera. So I think there was a public comment, and in the public comment, there was like a fair concern expressed that SDG&E builds more than they need to, that there's more investment in infrastructure than they need because they get a guaranteed rate of return. Can you help the public understand why they shouldn't be concerned that underground utility projects are an unnecessary expense that is leading to unnecessary costs in their lives?
Sure, Councilmember, thanks for that question. I think it's important to note that SDG&E does not get a rate of return on any of these projects. So unlike some of their undergrounding efforts in the wildfire areas where they do get a rate of return on that, they do not get a rate of return on ours. There's also our team, right? We're here to make sure that costs are coming in on time and on scope, and the project's being done on time and on scope. And so there is a little bit of accountability where SDG&E doesn't have an individual team that is managing each of their projects on other different projects that they have. There's a city component behind it that manages those funds and manages that schedule to make sure that they are coming in. We also have an MOU that keeps them accountable, and we actually just got a recommendation to reopen that MOU that will give hopefully the framework a little bit more teeth so we can bite into them a little bit harder in the future.
If I may add to that, the surcharge program that we're referencing, that was something that the City of San Diego, in collaboration with the utility, got passed at the CPUC in 2002. So there is a slight percentage on electrical bills. We do believe that it's in the best interest of the public to continue undergrounding for reliability as well as fire safety. But if that was, to be looked at, deeper, this is it's via the Public Utilities Commission.
Understood. Thank you for that. How do we determine success? When you all are looking back at this in a few years, what are you going to be looking at to say we're hitting hitting the marks we aimed to hit?
Sure, that's a really big question, and I'm going to try to answer it as succinct as possible. Success looks like a couple of different ways. First, there's the customer satisfaction, right? Are we meeting the needs of customers that are looking to have their utility lines underground? Are they doing it on time? Are we doing it in a way that they find is efficient and not as disruptive to their day-to-day lives? There's also just holding SDG&E accountable for cost and schedule. So are we doing these projects? Right now we average about 10 million a mile. Are we doing these projects on average at the same cost point? Are we keeping SDG&E accountable to that cost point? And are we doing it on schedule, or are there schedule overruns? And so success looks like having our mission statement, which is eventually having all the utility lines overhead underground, where we have unblocked viewways, we have better fire safety, and we've serviced communities that have historically been underserved. So I think that, in a succinct way, is probably one of the answers that I would give to that question.
I will add to that, and I appreciate the comments from Council President LaCava about, the last couple of years, seeing some changes in the team and of the delivery of the program. And so I want to reiterate also that we're constantly, we are actively and iteratively trying to find more and better ways to run these programs. And a lot of that comes down to the data that we have, right? And so whether it's improving, like Jenny mentioned, if it's improving customer communications, understandability, satisfaction from our from residents and constituents, along with both having to have a working relationship with SDG&E to get this done, at the same time holding them accountable, and then having the data to be able to back that up and support it. Jenny also mentioned that there is a recommendation that will be coming forward from the Franchise Audit Review Committee, specifically to our MOU about looking at openers of the MOU, also looking at ways that we can have better oversight of invoicing and things like that. And we welcome all of those comments. And then I hope that what you have seen over the last several years is when we do get that type of feedback, you see us making those changes actively and reporting back on that.
Thank you. And then the last question, like kind of big picture, where do you think we're at in terms of our evolution in integrating undergrounding work with stormwater, complete streets projects, streetlight upgrades? Like we're doing better than before? Are we doing everything you think we can do? And what's necessary to do that integration as well as possible?
So I'll start with the sort of lowest common denominator, which has historically been the one dig policy that we have enacted with undergrounding. I think it's one of the main infrastructure projects that actually delivers on that promise, where SDG&E as well as all the telecoms are using one single trench versus using up a lot of the real estate underneath our street asset. That's one. The second that I think we deliver really well on, though it may elongate the final restoration of a street, is the collaboration and cost share and coordination that we do with stormwater and public utility projects, where if there is coordination necessary, that we are coming back to only pave the street one time. So those are places that I think we are currently demonstrating success. Something that we are looking forward to and that we've incorporated into the master plan. And I will just reference, I know that one of the public comments did ask about equity. I think it was from Joyce Anyata, asked if we had worked with Office of Race and Equity. All of our prioritization, all of the equity components, we have had many meetings with Kim Desmond and her team, and they've done a lot of evaluations on these things. So one thing that we are incorporating into prioritization that hadn't been done before is the multi-asset benefit. So looking at ways that we can for street lights, right? Can we prioritize areas that have series circuits, right? The oldest circuits that need to be upgraded. What is the PCI of the streets? And how many CIP dollars have historically been invested in neighborhoods versus not? And those are all now things that we are looking at from a prioritization to try to make it more holistic, to make our dollars go farther for the community.
That's great. Just one follow-up to that. What I'm hearing is that there's a lot of thought being put into it. Where do you feel like we are in terms of like turning that thought into kind of the action that you're hoping to see and tangible changes that you could point to a constituent and say, 5 years ago, this wouldn't have looked like it looks like today, and here's how it's different?
So some of the stuff that we have brought forward in the last year is really future focused. So when we came and we brought updates to the council policy 600-8 to rules, we got rid of the allocation process. So historically speaking, when we brought forward any new projects for district creation, it had to be a project block that was already on that allocated list. Anyone who was not allocated or kind of that gray, the gray on our map, they were not even being considered. So one thing that we did was we took that out when we came in this past year. We did that, and then the second component is updated our prioritization to include multi-asset benefit, all of the other equity components. Those changes are going to be seen in the subsequent projects that we move forward. That being said, I think some of the ways in which we've improved, at least from a constituent or resident standpoint, there has been so much historical frustration around, being promised that their neighborhood was going to get undergrounded years ago, and it never was. We have taken all of that to heart, and we've spent a lot of time the last several years to improve our maps, to simplify nomenclature. We did a customer journey evaluation this past year, identifying all of the points of the projects where we have not historically had any contact with customers, and have now created collateral and mechanisms to have more touch points. So I think it's, and like Council President LaCava said, for this master plan update, we also, we're not moving forward with an implementation plan. I think that sort of hindered us more than it helped us, especially once we updated it and then we went to a franchise renegotiation and all that went out the window. So I think something that in closing, we are trying to do good by the resident. We're trying to improve communications. We're trying to listen to the feedback that we've received and then deliver on that feedback. So I think we've done a lot better in that area. And as far as equity and other components for improving communities, we're going to be seeing that in the near future.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we have a motion from Council President. We have a second from our Vice Chair. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That passes unanimously and brings us to our next item. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 5 is Utilities Undergrounding Program Utility Pole and Overhead Line Exception Requests. And if you're watching on City TV or the live stream online and you'd like to dial in to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252, inputting webinar ID 160-732-9638 #. Chair.
All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record again, please, and then proceed when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Chelsea Clacius, Deputy Director in the Transportation Department. With me is Jenny Reynolds, Program Manager in the Utility Undergrounding Program. We need 7 minutes for our presentation. Thank you.
As way of background, it's important to remember before we dive into this conversation today that Statute 61.0508 gives City Council the authority to create an undergrounding district, much like the one pictured in this screen. It is this authority that allows the UUP team to work with utility owners and ask them to underground all poles and wires in this area. Every single pole under this authority is required to be removed. Given this authority, there are 2 ways to grant pole or line exceptions. One is under Statute 61.0505, which allows some poles for street lighting, signalization, transmission line, and guy wires to be accepted without council approval. The other authority is Statute 61.0512, which allows City Council to grant exceptions when an unusual circumstance exists, as long as it's not detrimental to public health or general welfare, and that's the reason we're here today. During the initial phases of these two projects, SDG&E asked for 1J Phase 1 to have 1 pole and 4 overhead lines to remain and get picked up with La Jolla-S1, as well as 1Y to have 1 pole remain to get picked up with TBSV-S5. Let's go into both in detail. For residential block 1J Phase 1, you can see the red dot at the very top of the map and the little black dots pointed to the northeast. Those are the poles and lines in question. Block 1J Phase 1 is in construction phase when SDG&E asked for the pole and 4 overhead lines to stay due to serving overhead distribution lines outside the undergrounding district. You can see this denoted at the top photo. This pole serves as a transition point from the underground to the overhead. Our recommendation is to grant SDG&E's exception and allow the pole and lines to be picked up with La Jolla-S1 and keep the project on schedule. For residential block 1Y, you can see the red dot at the far west of the project map. This is the pole in question. This project is currently in design phase, and SDG&E asked for the pole to remain because the pole represents the only viable location to establish a primary cable connection, since the next nearest pole is restricted from trenching through the marshland areas that lies between the two locations. Our recommendation is to grant this SDG&E exception and allow the pole to be picked up with the adjacent project boundary and keep the project on schedule. Next steps. First, we're incorporating additional checks during boundary walks to capture as many serving outside the boundaries as we can get ahead of time. 2, we're working to develop an SOP so that this process will be understood by all stakeholders. And 3, we're doing our due diligence now by reviewing all current and recent construction projects to ensure that they have proper exception status. Since this is the first time we're here asking for exceptions, there are about 22 older projects and 200 lines of data that will be coming back to council to ask for exceptions later on this year. And with that, are there any questions?
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've received 1 speaker slip here in chambers. Blair Beekman, you will have 2 minutes to provide your comment on item 5.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Thank you for this item and the previous item. I don't know where exactly it is, but the work I do with tech accountability, the way it can help make for a more efficient practice of streetlight repair and replacement, boy, where that connects. I wish I knew it better, but I know there's a really good connection in there between doing open good practices and policies with the tech that can make it easier for people to call in and ask for replacements and those replacements to happen. All of it being done as a shared, open, accountable process to make sure that the tech going into the new streetlights is past muster, it's safe, and it's good, and yet can still be eventually light can be replaced. Good luck how we work on that item. I thank you immensely how you talked about equity for the previous item, and I guess it can apply for this one too. Really good meetings this week with agenda items about the new equity department within IPA. They sound like they're on a really good path and doing good work, and what you're doing with how equity can be applied to underground issues, really nice suggestion by Joyce Sonata, and how streetlight repair works into all of those questions of equity, and the tech involved and the accountability. You're trying to ask those questions at this time, and I hope this can be a more regular thought process in how we consider this item. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and beginning the 5-minute timer for all those in the virtual queue to indicate if they wish to provide comment on item 5. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. We'll begin testimony with phone number ending in 8700. You can unmute by pressing *6.
Thank you, Sarah. Joey Senyata, CD3. First of all, the last item and this item are intricately related. Committee, you get a 5-star award for that last item, and the presenters, the two of you get a 5-star award. That's what the public loves, and I'll include the public speakers too, of course. That was really perfect. It was robust. It was informative. It felt, sincere. I just really, really appreciated it. So on this item, what was accepted? Well, first of all, I love the word city council authority. Those are good words. But it took me into the trenches because on that last item, when I researched it and I went into the trenches in my imagination, I realized there were shared utilities under there. I thought, oh my goodness, who gets to go in there and who doesn't, and when does it get overfilled, and does it get, do we dig it up again and have to put somebody else that wants to get in there? So this was very informative to me to find out how complicated it is to negotiate, to, work with, this space, which I guess is finite. It was just a great connection, these two, and their connection was just a wonderful thing for my work and for the public to get the information that they need for transparency and accountability, and to trust that you're serving the public in a way that's good for all people that sit at this table. So one people, one San Diego, and I'm, one family. So love to all.
Thank you for your concluding remark. Our next speaker is phone number ending in 8813. You can unmute by pressing *6.
Okay, Consuelo here. So so no one's really talking about the actual environmental and infrastructure risks. So again, underground electrical systems are not immune to problems, and what happens during flooding. Floodwater and rising groundwater can submerge underground cables, damage insulation, and cause electrical failures. Saltwater intrusion near coastal areas can even corrode buried infrastructure. And some fail, just like I mentioned before, crews can't just climb down a pole. You got to tear up streets, sidewalks, neighborhoods. So now let's talk about earthquakes, because we're in San Diego, we're in California. Soil movement, slides, all these things can shift or break underground infrastructure. Unlike overhead lines where damage is visible, underground failures are harder to locate and slower to repair. There's environmental disruption during construction. Installing underground wiring requires major trenching projects, heavy machinery. What's funny now that I think about it? Sorry, this just popped in my head. During the whole lockdown, there was so much underground work. Perhaps that's the reason why they had us in our houses. Well, not me. But anyways, okay, so all of this costs enormous amounts of money. And that money doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from we, the taxpayers. So now today we're hearing that the presenters are asking for exceptions and that they'll come back later. So, okay, let me get this straight. You're asking for exceptions now and we'll deal with the consequences later, or what? Because, it doesn't look efficient to me, and it looks reckless. Our money, again.
Thank you for your concluding remark. This does conclude your time. And with no other hands up in the queue, this concludes public comment for item 5.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's begin the conversation with Council President LaCava.
Really not trying to dominate. So the public all should be excited by this one because we're leaving the facilities above ground, right? We actually are. One, this is the first time that staff or operations has brought to us. I always want to check my memory about these kinds of things. Both these items are in District 1, which is why I jumped on the lights. Both of these, I looked at both of them. They both make a lot of sense. I understand why within those respective undergrounding districts, those two poles are will be set aside for a future consideration. And I asked a question yesterday. I just want to ask it again in case anybody who lives in those areas are listening. So in the La Jolla one, that is both for the pole to remain and for the 4 wires that cross La Jolla Shores Drive and go up the open space towards UCSD. I understand that. For the one in Del Mar Heights, Del Mar Terrace, I think it's called Del Mar Terrace, that one, all the lines that come out of the residential neighborhood and attach to that pole, those will be undergrounded. The pole will be left, and then the wires that go across the marsh, the Penasquitos Lagoon, that will remain for a future consideration. Okay, just wanted to make sure those lines that come out of the residential area will be removed, so thank you for that. And then I look forward for the additional cleanup. Again, I mentioned earlier about the new energy and a new approach. I appreciate your willingness to go back and do the exceptions and cleanup work for those so that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So again, thank you. With that, I will make the motion to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Council President. We've got a motion. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you. I'm happy to second the motion, and I want to thank you for thinking about this. It makes perfect efficiency sense that when a wire, okay, so it starts in La Jolla, but it's going through the air over to the next district over, then the next district over's workload will be with that. And everything just makes so much more efficiency. I really appreciate you thinking of everything in that way. And there are some things that we have to make exceptions, like street lights, traffic lights, and street lights, and anchor wires, and huge metal poles that have transmission wires. Things like that may not have to be undergrounded, but most of the items will be, which makes everyone so much safer. And I really appreciate all the good thoughts you put into this. I will second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a motion and a second. We'll just go ahead and do a voice vote again. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That 2 passes unanimously, 3-0, and brings us to our next item, item 6. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair Elo Rivera. Item number 6 is approve the second amended and restated regional wastewater disposal agreement between the City of San Diego and the participating agencies in the metropolitan sewage system. And if you're watching on City TV and you'd like to dial in to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252, inputting webinar ID 160-732-9638#. Chair.
Thank you. All right, once our presenters are ready, please introduce yourselves for the record and let us know how much time you'd like for this item.
Good afternoon. Lisa Salaya, Executive Assistant Director, and with me is Adam Jones, Finance Deputy Director, and we should need no more than 10 minutes.
All right, please proceed.
So good afternoon, Committee Chair Elo Rivera and members of the Environment Committee. Today, Public Utilities is before you to discuss an amendment to the foundational agreement to operate and manage the region's wastewater system. To begin, I want to provide an overview of the governance structure to ensure wastewater for the region's 2.3 million customers is managed in an environmentally friendly manner and in compliance with all regulations. The City of San Diego owns and operates the regional wastewater system, but in partnership with the Metropolitan Wastewater JPA, who shares in cost and oversight, and is represented by 12 individual participating agencies and represents the region from as far north as Poway, as far east as Alpine, and all the way down to the border. The purpose of the second amended and restated agreement, commonly referred to as SARA, not a who, but a what, the purpose of it is to modernize our regional wastewater agreement, resolve remaining issues from the last time it was amended in 2021, update our cost allocation and billing structure, and establishes a 40-year regional governance framework. Key policy and financial updates that have been include cost-sharing approach for not only Pure Water Phases 1, but also Phase 2. In a couple slides, I'll detail a little bit more about our billing methodology that it has been developed based on how agencies utilize our system, including the introduction of fixed charges to address peak wet weather events, and how we have improved transparency and proportional cost recovery. To highlight operational and governance improvements, and that includes clarification of allocation of any regulatory fines and penalties, establishing a defined approval pathway for future updates. It should be noted, it took us 4 years to process and negotiate the second amendment. We would choose not to spend that many resources doing that and have identified other paths to be able to update as laws change or anything changes as it relates to having a 40-year agreement. That would improve our flexibility to address regional operational issues, but does maintain the city's ownership and operational responsibilities. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the improved billing methodology. Currently, our billing methodology is based on average flows and the strength of the wastewater being treated. That has been problematic in regards to looking for the future, as we have these average flows that are actually declining, not only because of water conservation, but also because of advanced purification projects coming online in the next few years, and any other ones that may come on in the next 40 years. And then we also have the issue with peak wet weather events that can more than double the amount of our average flows. We need to ensure our regional wastewater system is prepared and resilient, which requires necessary funding for the future. The new proposed functional allocation billing addresses both daily flows and peak wet weather flows and allocates them to agencies based on how they utilize our system. So if they only use us every once in a while, they're only going to pay for those fixed charges. But if they pay it every day, they'll have both averages and fixed charges. This does result in approximately 25% of our revenue being fixed. This slide, as small as it is, because we have 12 different participating agencies, plus the City of San Diego, is in our information and does depict the positive impacts on the City of San Diego by changing the billing structure. It has been our intent to be very purposeful in communicating the impact from any of the changes that we're doing. We have been wanting to be transparent to all entities so that way everybody can plan for any changes from these revised billing methodology. One of the ways that we've addressed ensuring that we do not have to go back and do amendments is we've introduced this concept in regards to having administrative agreement. An example of our first administrative agreement for pretreatment is included in our item. These administrative agreements will allow for targeted operational or programmatic updates. They are specified within the document. It avoids reopening the full regional agreement. It does require the City of San Diego support first before consideration. And the key thing that we are very supportive of is it replaces a unanimous requirement of having every single participating agency approve an amendment and goes to more of a 2/3 approval to replace. In conclusion, I want to talk about the next steps. This amendment does require each and every participating agency to approve it before it can go into effect, including the City of San Diego also. We have to date had 10 of our 12 participating agencies have it approved. I will note, it has been unanimously approved at each and every participating agency that has considered it to date, showing the regional support that we have. We have one more scheduled in 2 weeks, I believe, and then we will be awaiting one more agency. Once the 12 agencies approve it, plus the city and city council approves this, we are looking at potentially having a July 1st of 2026, fiscal year 27 for implementation. But again, it must have all participating agencies' approval to go into effect. That concludes our presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have public comment on this item?
Thank you, Jerry. As we've received 2 speaker slips, we will begin testimony with Jerry Jones, and you will be followed by Blair Beekman. Each speaker will have 2 minutes.
My name is Jerry Jones, and I am the chair of the Metro Wastewater JPA. You know, 24 years ago, as a newly elected council member in Lemon Grove, my mayor told me, don't talk to your colleagues about wastewater, you bore them. So here I am all these years later, talking to 2/3 of the cities in the county, selling a new wastewater agreement. I got to start by saying thank you to Lisa and Adam. The process has been very collaborative and collegial, and it's created a really good product here. This item before you is significant and it's generational. It protects the environment, it protects water reliability, and it protects our ratepayers, all of them, including yours. So I guess I have to say I'm proud to have been part of the process, and I would urge you to approve it and bring us into the 21st century. Thank you. And I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I wish I had a bit more knowledge on this subject. I do not. To try to offer my 2 cents, what little I can understand. The water meter items, billing, I think it's billing over an app issue. It was on the consent item today on the meeting minutes, and that you've been talking about for the past month or so. Does that connect to this item at all? Can that be of help to this item at all? Water meter issues on an app program. How to pay bills. Another consideration. I wish I read more into this item. Was there a good public process for all of these decision making going on? Does there need to be? Will there continue to be a good public, healthy public input to understand these billing changes? Just to be clear, nothing else at this point. I hope there's been a good whole community process in doing this. And to quickly add, I hope it can be relevant. Thank you for the words of Councilperson Campbell this week on wanting to address stormwater issues and the overall issues and needs of revenue. And I think we have a great system of such a low fee for stormwater issues that I don't want to raise all that much. But from $1 to $2, that's twice as much. Would that be considered budgetarily proportional and helpful? Hopefully it can be in small increments, the future of stormwater issues that can still cover a lot of ground. Good luck how to figure out those kind of formulas. That takes work. Thank you. And good luck to talking about revenue. We talk clearly together about revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony here in chambers. So I'll begin the 5-minute timer for all those in the virtual queue to indicate if they wish to provide comment on item 6 at this time. We currently have 3 hands raised, and we will begin testimony with phone number ending in 8700. You can unmute by pressing *6. You will have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Sarah. Joyce Sunyata, CD3. Thank you, Blair. I too did not have a chance to really look at this thoroughly. I just ran out of steam, and it's such an important area. I'm hopefully going to be able to fit it in over the weekend. So Blair, you did that question about outreach was important. I hope that you did do that. So wastewater system, this is a big one. And I loved coming out of the gate and using the word environmental friendly. Aren't those just absolutely wonderful words? I need more understanding, and perhaps I just need to review the backup on cost sharing approach for Pure Water Phase 1 and 2. Now, here's something I want to tell you that has just blew me away. I think it was a couple of years ago when we had an agenda item relating water. Wastewater, well, in fact, they mentioned briefly today, wastewater decrease due to water conservation. Now, way back about 2 years ago, somebody said in a presentation here that the public, because they have conserved so beautifully, they have changed their lives. It is a paradigm shift. And I'll give a personal testimonial to that. You know how I've been ranting and raving about what happened with the conservation and how it impacted our water rates going up. I can't give up water conservation. I'm back on board. That's a paradigm shift that won't go away for me too. So kudos to the public. And I'm still not sure how this is positively impacting our water rates, but I hope that you're on top of it. I don't understand the context.
Thank you. This does conclude your time. Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is phone number ending in 8813. You can unmute by pressing *6.
Okay, well, let me break it down a little bit. Consuelo here. So now we're talking about wastewater management, which essentially means recycling sewage water and presenting it as a future drinking supply. Correct? Let's call it what it is. So we're being asked to accept the idea that the water we flush down the toilet should eventually come back through the tap for drinking, cooking, bathing. And we're told this is necessary because of scarcity. But here's the problem. We do not live on a planet of water scarcity. We live on a planet of water abundance. Oceans, rainfall, groundwater, rivers, aquifers, water exists everywhere in the natural system. You breathe it. We literally are water. What we're really dealing with is how water is managed, not whether it exists. Yet government messaging constantly tells the people that we are running out, that we must accept more centralized systems, more treatment plans, and more expensive infrastructure. Why? Because scarcity creates compliance. When people are convinced they can't survive without government managing every drop, they stop questioning the system, pun intended. But there are many alternatives, and they deserve attention. So before we normalize turning sewage into drinking water, we could expand on how about stormwater capture, how about rainwater harvesting instead of penalizing people for harvesting their own freaking water. I mean, I don't think we do that here in California, or do we? No, we don't. We can have that. We have we could focus on protecting groundwater basins and natural aquifer recharge, working with nature instead of constantly building more industrial infrastructure. All of these options.
Thank you. This does conclude your time. Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is the original. Please unmute and begin.
Yeah, this is not going to stop our water rates from going up. In fact, they're going to continue to go up all while you are recycling our own sewage and giving it back to us. And amen to that, Consuelo. It is so sad because it's like you're sitting here and acting like that is what the will of the people wants. That did you ever ask the people if this is what we should do? Especially when it's known that data centers for AI are taking fresh water along with lithium mining. It's taking up our fresh water. So there's not enough for the people, but there seems to be enough for those types of things. And that is detrimental to humanity. When you guys are sitting here, it's all about controlling resources because you can't control the people without doing that. And the fact that you are wrapping this up in a package like this is going to be better for people, it's going to be even any kind of healthy, especially when you're putting toxic chemicals into this water that then we are going to consume. It's like all of the things that you guys should be concerned about if you were worried about the planet and preserving it and people's public health and safety, you would be ensuring that that fresh water that is even being diverted much of the time or being put into the ocean and or used for this type of infrastructure and materials isn't happening. You would also make sure that when they're spraying toxic chemicals, nanoparticulates in the sky above us, and also geoengineering the weather, that would bother you because that is detrimental to us as a race and to the whole planet. But instead, you guys are more concerned about making money, all while professing that this is going to, save us money. Nothing you do saves us money, ever. You guys waste our money. And it's just very sad that you don't concentrate and focus on the things that are actually doing what you are claiming. It's ridiculous.
Thank you for your concluding remark. And with the 5-minute timer expired and no hands in the queue, this concludes testimony on item 6.
All right, thank you. Begin with Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you so much, Chair. This is a wonderful example of communities working with each other, cities working with each other. This has to do with the metropolitan sewage system of many entities. We have 12 cities that are involved with this, and the Padre water system as well. I might have said the name of them incorrectly, but at any rate, that's close. You know who I mean. So it's really 13 entities, and what happens is they send their wastewater to the city of San Diego, and the city of San Diego is much bigger than they are, and so our wastewater amount is bigger than theirs put together, but nevertheless, all 13 of us are working together for this problem. And just wondering in terms of pure water, if anybody's ever been to Las Vegas, for years they have used recycling of sewage water in order to make potable water that is good to drink. Their water's fine in Las Vegas. I've had it a few times myself, and it's just fine. So this is not a brand new technology by any means. However, doing it on the scale that we will be doing it and are starting to do it now is just fantastic, and we are the first in the nation. Again, we're leading the nation with this good new technology. Unfortunately, San Diego doesn't sit on an aquifer. It's like the people in Israel say, if there was any place that God could have given the people of Israel land, it had to be a place with no oil. And this is true also of San Diego. And so what do? Well, many years ago, the city PUD made a system whereby we could collect rainwater and also get kudos for saving using water in our homes. And those have been wonderful things that have helped tremendously to make our water use in the city go down in terms of amounts. So we've been working on this for many years. This particular agreement has been in the works for 4 years, and I think every which way has been looked at and thought about. And I would like to make the motion that the city of San Diego join those 10 other cities, and I'm sure the other 2 will come on board as well. And thank you for being here, sir, and thank you for chairing that organization. Wow. It's probably a lot like herding cats, but to get all those cities together and working together, it's just fabulous, and that's the way things should be. So I can't thank all of you enough for the work on this, and I would like to move that we accept the agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We've got a motion, and we'll move to Council President Lukatov.
All right, thank you, Chair. I'm going to start by thanking you, sir, for your service over the years. That institutional knowledge, knowing the behaviors of the individual members is so important. So thank you for your leadership and your public service. Thank you, Lisa and Adam and everybody at PUD for the good work in navigating these kinds of agreement for wastewater disposal. These are not easy things to do. We got independent cities, different thinkers, and so trying to bring them all together is a tough job. And it sounds like from every way to look at it, this is good. For those who are listening in, maybe it might be helpful in case you might be confused. This is not about water meters. It's not about conservation of drinking water. It's not even about pure water. It's about disposing of wastewater, sewage, right? So we can either go back to the day where we say, hey, Del Mar or Imperial Beach or Coronado, just dump your sewage into the ocean, or La Mesa, or let me get my geography right, Lemon Grove, dump it into or Padre Dam, just dump your raw sewage into the San Diego River. Spring Valley, you might be far enough south to dump it into the Sweetwater River. I don't think that's a good idea. I think the whole metro sewer idea and the people that years before us came up with that idea to have a singular system that all goes and flows down to the Point Loma treatment plant was exactly what this region needed for livability. And so the work that has been done that's behind the scenes, we don't even pay attention to it. Everybody just does their job, keeps everything up and running. Cooperative is just a huge thing that makes our region a special place to live and work. There's other problems we need to tackle, but that's not this one. So with that, I'm happy to second the motion.
All right, thank you, Council President. As always, thank you for providing that additional context. I agree that is not a good idea. It would be a bad idea to go back to doing that. Thank you for all your work on this. Thank you for being here and your participation, sir. The one question I do have, Joy was enthusiastic, but also was like, I don't really understand how this affects rates. For someone who's first and foremost thinking about cost, why is this a good thing for us to do?
So first off, two things is that this doesn't directly impact rates right now. So what this does is it kind of sends a bill to the city of San Diego, sends a bill to each of these individuals, and then they must incorporate it into their rate structure. So that's one thing I wanted to clarify with that. But what this does is, because we're addressing peak weather events, there's two things that this benefits from. There is a slight reduction in regards to this revised allocation methodology, billing methodology for the city of San Diego. We're projected in 2027, or right now, that we'd be about 67% of the bill will be about 66%. But that's really important is when you look at these peak weather events, and anybody who's going to take their average flows off, they wouldn't be paying for this system. And if we have people not paying for the system itself may not have its investments, and we'll have to spend even more money. We need this system working. Pump Station 2, Pump Station 1, Point Loma. We need those backbones of our systems working each and every day. And this ensures that we have the funding and that fixed funding every year to make sure that those investments do occur, so we don't have to pay more expenses later on when they do fail, if they were to fail.
So from a cost perspective, you would tell a resident, this is a way of protecting from steep increases in the future. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that we're able to explain in the most concise terms the ways that we're trying to either save folks money either now or in the future, and that we're at a bare minimum having cost front and center as we make our decisions. So we've got a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That passes unanimously, and that brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you, and we'll adjourn this meeting of the Environment Committee to the next regularly scheduled meeting on Thursday, April 16th, 2026 at 1 p.m. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.